Nothing like a nice cup of coffee in the middle of the afternoon. Hi there, Mark Sweeney, Austin Dental Spa. If you've tuned in before, you know what this is all about. It must be Wednesday, and this is Wisdom Wednesday, where we try to bring you, for the last 7, 8 years, we've tried to bring you the latest in medical and dental research and technology, and then sometimes we throw in a few health tips of things that you can do immediately to make your life better and more valuable. And it fits right with our theme for the month. The month of August is A+ August, so it's kind of a play on the words of all the kids going back to school. We had a couple of patients come in this week and a couple of employees who had to take their kids to school for their first day of school. We never started school until the Tuesday after Labor Day. So why they keep starting it in the middle of August now when we still got a little bit of summer left, I don't know, but nobody asked me anymore. And so anyway, here we are in A+ August, and we've got a coffee study today that you might find interesting, you coffee drinkers out there. And if you're not a coffee drinker, you might want to consider it after hearing what we're going to talk about today. So it's all things coffee today. And this study actually came out of China, but it was published recently in the European Journal of Pharmacology, which gives it even a little more of a bite, that it was published in a pharmacology journal. So this new research, though, again, they didn't say which Chinese university was, and they just said it was Chinese mice. And we've referenced mice a few times on Wisdom Wednesdays over the last 7 years, and mice apparently have very similar brains and intestinal linings to human beings. So a lot of the studies that they do on mice actually transfer over pretty adequately, although this study, again, was not done on human beings. But they studied the gut-brain barrier, and we've talked about that on Wisdom Wednesday quite a bit over the last couple of years, that, you know, in dental school, they never talked much about the stomach lining. We knew what kind of cells were in there, but we did not know, because they just didn't know 45 years ago, that the gut lining, the intestinal lining, has a lot to do with your immune system and your immune response. And so a lot of the disease processes these days are linked back to chronic inflammation in the gut lining, in the microbiome, which there's trillions of bacteria that live in a normal, healthy person that help us, and some funguses thrown in there too for you that like to get grossed out about that stuff. But somebody with a chronically inflamed situation in their gut lining typically has all kinds of other systemic problems. And so what they in China were particularly interested in studying was depression. Because depression is one of the most common mental health conditions in the world right now, not just in the United States. It's not just all about us, but worldwide. Depression is a fairly common symptom of a greater problem now. So these, and you can treat it with medications. They've got all kinds of antidepressants out there now that have sometimes some side effects that are almost as bad as being depressed to begin with. So what these researchers in China were looking at is something more organic, something that might affect depression. So what they found, I think at the start of this study, it was just kind of general medical knowledge that people who drink coffee regularly tend kind of anecdotally tend to have fewer depressive symptoms. I didn't know that till I read this article, but I drink a couple of sips of coffee every day, and it works for me. So that gut-brain barrier, the connection between the brain and the gut, it actually is a two-way street. It's not just your brain controls what's going on in your gut. It actually goes the other direction too. And so your gut microbiome, that network of millions or trillions of bacteria and funguses that live in our bodies that help us digest our foods, even in a normal healthy person. The balance of those is very important. If you've ever taken a round of antibiotics for a week, you know what I'm talking about, because it kills some of the good bacteria as well as some of the bad bacteria, and a lot of people get diarrhea or other symptoms of bloating and things like that in their intestines from taking an antibiotic to treat an infection somewhere else, like a toothache. So they looked into all that stuff. And so here's the study, and then we'll get to the conclusions. The study, over a 2-week period, so for 2 weeks, they took mice, and they did not say how many. I'm one of those numbers guys that likes to say, how many were in the study, whether it's of mice or men? I want to know. But they had 3, it's a typical double-blind study. They had a control group. They had a first group that they gave caffeine to, and they had a second group that they did not give caffeine to. The second and third groups, they intentionally stressed them, and they apparently, who knew, they have these tests that can measure the amount of stress that a mouse is under. Maybe a picture of a little mouse trap or something. I don't know. But anyway, they tested all 3 groups. And then they also have tests after the mouse was stressed that they could tell just how much stress response did they have from whatever the stressor, the picture of the mouse trap or the bad cheese or something. I don't know. That's just Mark's brain running off. Anyway, they analyzed these biologic markers, as they called them, and they found that the third group, the group that got no caffeine and got stressed, actually got traumatized to a point where not only did their brain functions change, but their intestinal functions changed, and they were more susceptible to inflammation and to bad things, bacteria and stuff, getting into their blood system through the intestinal wall. Whereas the control group and the group that got caffeine injected into them did not. They almost had a similar level. There was very little statistical significance between those first 2 groups. So they found that the caffeinated mice actually handled stress better and just as well as the control group, which I thought was just kind of fascinating stuff, that something as simple as a cup of coffee every morning might help you handle the daily stresses of life a little better than you might have otherwise. So their conclusion was the stress mice that received the caffeine did not show the same disruptions to the intestinal barrier, to the inflammation, to the gut bacteria levels, suggesting that caffeine's effects on mental health might be partly mediated by its influence on the gut microbiome. So, fascinating stuff. If you've tuned in before, you know I always end with a health tip, and this was a no-brainer to segue from that study into, okay, so you don't like coffee. How can you make it taste better? Well, number one, start with quality coffee. If you're still drinking Folgers instant coffee, I tried that stuff way long time ago, and it's terrible. Not to knock Folgers and Maxwell House, but those are the lower level coffees. So nowadays, especially if you're in Austin, there are so many good coffee places that roast their own beans and have different flavors and stuff, but they're fresh, roasted, and believe me, they taste different. I got a couple of them. I live downtown. I got a couple of them right around where I live, and buying the coffee from them, even as opposed to going over to Randall's and buying their higher level coffees, no comparison. So, and certainly better than Starbucks, in my opinion. So buy quality coffee. Go, if you don't know anything about it, go into one of those bean roasters like Summer Moon or one of those places that roast their own coffee beans, and just strike up a conversation and tell them what it is you like and get something that's high quality. Secondly, don't overdo it. Americans think if 1x is good, 3x must be 3 times as good. So more coffee does not necessarily mean more effect. You actually can hit a point of diminishing returns where too much coffee can have other side effects besides affecting your mental health in a positive way. So it's not like it's going to make you even less likely to get depressed. And third, substitutes for sugar. Well, that's an easy one. I already mentioned the flavored coffees. You can try flavoring your coffee with something besides sugar. Being a dentist, I can't really recommend, hey, dump a bunch of sugar in it. But cinnamon is good. Vanilla, you can buy vanilla coffee beans that have been treated on the outside. They're hazelwood. There's all kinds of different flavors that they've baked into the coffee beans. Try it and just see if maybe you can learn to stand the taste of coffee, and it might just have a healthy benefit for you. So that's it for Wisdom Wednesday this week. I'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of Wisdom